any corporate or business tax cuts will fly through. I'm not sure about an outright repeal of health care. We'll see. But clearly, on anything to do with the classic Republican stuff, which is cutting taxes, this guy's going to walk through this stuff. It'll go right to the Senate. And if the Senate is very evenly divided, there'll be a real fight over there.
That margin, as we see it now, does that suggest the likelihood of some challenge to his speakership is diminished because Republicans and even those Tea Partiers who have their own wavelength would not challenge him because of that potential margin and what you could do with it if they remain unified?
Well, you're ahead of me on that. I haven't heard of a challenge being planned, and I think the Republican Party is a much more orderly party than the Democrats generally. I haven't heard of any kind of a Jerry Ford plan, any coup going on. I don't think Boehner's done anything wrong, but I do think it's going to be interesting. If he has 80 new people in, a lot of them Tea Partiers, he's going to have to be a really smart leader to keep everybody together.
Speaking of the Tea Party, Rand Paul is making his victory speech in Kentucky, and we're going to join it right now.
Thank you. Thank you. What a crowd. I'd like to thank my wife, Kelly. I couldn't have done it without her. And my boys, William and Duncan and Robert, and for the great music. Thank you, guys. I have a message. A message from the people of Kentucky. A message that is loud and clear and does not mince words. We've come to take our government back. They say that the U.S. Senate is the world's most deliberative body. Well, I'm going to ask them to deliberate upon this. The American people are unhappy with what's going on in Washington. 11% of the people approve of what's going on in Congress. But tonight, there's a Tea Party tidal wave, and we're sending a message to them. It's a message that I will carry with me on day one. It's a message of fiscal sanity. It's a message of limited constitutional government and balanced budgets. When I arrive in Washington, I will ask them respectfully to deliberate upon this. We are in the midst of a debt crisis, and the American people want to know why we have to balance our budget and they don't. I will ask them respectfully to deliberate upon this. Government does not create jobs. Individual entrepreneurs, businessmen and women create jobs, but not the government. I will ask them respectfully to deliberate upon this. Why is America great? Why are we the greatest, richest, and freest country ever known to man? America is exceptional, but it is not inherently so. America is exceptional because we embraced freedom, because we enshrined it in our documents, and because we have lived and fought for the principles of freedom. America will remain great if we remain proud of America, if we remain proud of the American system. the system that is enshrined in our founding documents, the system that protects and promotes the free exchange of goods, the system that protects capitalism that has made this country great. America will remain great if and when we understand that government cannot create prosperity. We have to understand that it comes from ourselves. It does not come from government. We are the creators of that prosperity. Until we understand that, we cannot truly protect and defend our liberties. I have great confidence in the American system. We must believe in ourselves and not believe that somehow some benevolent leader in a distant capital will take care of us, will save us from ourselves. We must once again believe in ourselves. I will ask the Senate respectfully to deliberate upon this. Do we wish to live free or be enslaved by debt? Do we believe in the individual or do we believe in the state? Thomas Jefferson wrote that government is best that governs least. Likewise, freedom is best when enjoyed by the most. America can rise up and surmount these problems if we just get government out of our way. I am humbled by the honor bestowed upon me by the voters of Kentucky. I will do everything within my power to live up to that trust. America's best days lie ahead of her. If we can once again unleash the creative genius, the entrepreneurial spirit, the faith in ourselves that is the American dream. Thank you, and God bless America.
Senator-elect Rand Paul of Kentucky with a rousing, if somewhat boilerplate speech that was predicated on the description of the United States Senate, which he will join, as the world's most deliberative body. And we were debating back and forth about, since every quote and all the structure of that speech originated and hung on that. Anybody heard that before? Wasn't it greatest deliberative body or most formidable deliberate body?
Greatest it used to be. It used to be greatest.
Now it's just deliberative.
Now it's most.
No.
So you should deliberate a lot.
It used to be the world's most exclusive men's club. That was an earlier phrase.
Well, it's getting that way again, but that's another story.
I thought that was classic. I wouldn't call it, well, I would call it Goldwater. And it was unmodified. He would have said, and we shouldn't have used the Interstate Commerce Clause to justify or allow the constitutionality of the Civil Rights Bill. I think if you got him under sodium pentothal, he would include all that. That was pretty close to everything he believes, but not everything.
He is a man on a very fast collision course with his principles. One of the early votes he will be asked to cast in the United States Senate is the single most important vote ever cast by members of the House and the Senate, and that is on the debt ceiling.
Exactly.
Our debt ceiling is now $14.3 trillion. It will need to be raised in the coming year. He just used the phrase enslaved by debt. Yeah. This is exactly what he stands against. If he, and he is as a single United States Senator, empowered to prevent us from raising the debt ceiling, because it must be raised on a date certain at a particular time on the clock, or the United States government goes into default. If he filibusters the debt ceiling beyond that point, he can not only destroy the credit rating of the United States of America, he can wreak havoc on the world financial markets, cause a worldwide depression with one consistent holding to principle, which is his notion of the American government's relationship to debt. This, by the way, is a challenge for Boehner in the House, his worst challenge. He must, and he knows it, pass a debt ceiling increase in his Republican House of Representatives. He will do it. But Rand Paul can stop it by himself.
Well, but the Republicans look back at 1995, they look back at Newt Gingrich and the government shutdown, and the lesson this year, before this year, the lesson was that was horrible. It was right, but they look back at that government shutdown and they think, before this year, the lesson of that was, oh, the Republicans went too far. This year, Republicans' lesson on that was, we should have gone farther. We should have held it closed for longer. They're going to look at that. They've already been talking about this. They're going to look at that debt ceiling vote.
Government shutdown is nothing compared to
the debt ceiling.
I know, but the Republican rhetoric around this cannot be underestimated. People as centrist in the Republican Party as Michael Steele have said there will be no compromise on that debt ceiling vote. Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky. It is not just one guy.
Michael Steele doesn't understand what it is. He's the same guy who didn't know what the minimum wage was when I asked him. They do not comprehend the worldwide economic depression that would be caused instantaneously by the United States government defaulting on its debt, which they are empowered to make happen.
They salivate at the
Mitch
thought of it.
McConnell understands it.
He does.
So Mitch McConnell understands it.
And he kind of understands Rand Paul. A little bit.
Kind of. So,
do you think Mitch McConnell won't let him do it?
Well, I think he will try his best to find a way to keep him from doing it. And Mitch McConnell is about as good as anybody in the world at the byways and techniques of the Senate. I mean, he's really, really good.
Rand Paul can vote against it. You only need 51 votes to pass it. But Rand Paul is empowered to filibuster it. Will he? His principles say he must.
It certainly would cut to the chase in terms of getting government off your back, since there wouldn't be one. That would simplify things considerably.
Not just this government, governments around the world.
That's my point. So there, in fact, that's anarchy. I believe there used to be before we threw the word communist out at people that we did not like. We threw the word anarchist out at them in the late 19th century. And you're suggesting that this is what could be on the table if Mr. Paul were to, in fact, Senator-elect Paul were to, in fact, take that position.
This is a real question. Lawrence is raising this not as I think as hyperbole, but this is an issue that they're really seriously debating on the right.
This is the only person I'm aware of who will take the oath of office as a United States Senator who I believe is capable of doing this.
Mike Lee already said he would. It's not just one. That's the amazing thing. If it were only Rand Paul, he would be the story. The story is what's happened to the Republican Party this year, that there are a number of them. And somebody should ask Jim DeMint shortly if that's going to be his first crusade.
I believe this brings us back to the subject of the universal solvent, because we have now found it. Bring Mr. Schultz back in from Las Vegas and the idea of the debt ceiling. Is it possible that Senator-elect Tea Party himself might vary from his stated positions, even in his accepted speech, in his moment of glory, in his succession of A-plus conservative wisdom phrases there? Could he, in fact, have said this and meant something else?
You know, Keith, this is the intrigue. This guy's got a personality that he projects that he's not beholden to anybody. I mean, this guy is now the lead dog in the pack of the Tea Party. Not only is he winning by a commanding number, but he comes out tonight. Now, think about this panel here is immense knowledge and experience when it comes to politics. How many of you have seen an acceptance speech like that? I mean, he came out on a roll tonight. He didn't come out saying, gosh, I'm really thankful for the people behind me and all. He came out almost dictating that this is the way it's going to be. And I don't think that this guy's beholden to anybody. I think that he is going to be just as much a problem for the Republicans and even Jim DeMint. Probably Jim DeMint's probably the only guy that's going to be able to go over and throw cold water on this guy. And so this is very interesting. And what Lawrence says is spot on. Now, Rand Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, he's one of these guys that kind of hangs out with the birthers every now and then. And so he's just the kind of guy that would keep this birth certificate conversation alive. But I have a question, as we have been reporting tonight that the control of the House is going to the Republicans. 4 years ago, in the midst of an avalanche of criticism of the Bush administration, Nancy Pelosi took impeachment off the table. I want to ask Mr. Boehner tonight, are you going to take impeachment off the table? Or are we going to go down this road of divide? Are we going to go down this road of investigations? Michelle Bachmann's going to be on later. She's talking about subpoenas and investigations. Well, there's your number, 237 to 198. Now the ball's in their court, and are they going to take